Hi everyone, Big Thinny Blessed Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Ariana Grande album, PETAL. This is the newest and 8th full-length LP from pop singer and songwriter Miss Ariana Grande, whose last LP dropped back in 2024, and we're getting a pretty quick follow-up here. Quick, considering everything Ariana currently has on her plate. She just got to the finish line with those 2 new Wicked movies that she did tons of promo and interviews for. She also has that new Meet the Parents sequel that will be dropping soon starring Ben Stiller, and she's currently touring material from Eternal Sunshine as well and doing promo for this record too. So yeah, she's really doing a lot right now, though the last Ariana record, Eternal Sunshine, was not anywhere near a favorite of mine in her catalog. It really wasn't doing much to my ears outside of a few standout tracks and this sort of vague attempt at bringing some faint but groovy dance pop elements into the fold, which in theory is fine, but in practice came across kind of basic and unimaginative in an age where club and Y2K vibes are kind of ruling the dance pop meta. And again, to me it was shocking Ari didn't make more of a splash going in this direction, especially considering her storied vocal talents definitely set her apart from many of her pop contemporaries. Truth be told though, there was more discussion about this record with regard to her controversial relationship with Wicked co-star Ethan Slater, who she has now split from, making it even more regrettable that that dynamic was such a lyrical focus during some key moments on this LP. But again, considering everything that was going on around the release of this album, a so-so record from Ari at this point is almost excusable. You know, at the very least, it felt more listenable than Positions 4 years earlier. And again, given how many irons she's had in the fire over the last several years, maybe it's just kind of a case of having too many creative juices going in too many different directions. And so with this new album here, I was kind of hoping that if Ariana was going to give us another batch of tracks so soon, she would give it her full undivided attention and make it feel like a new definitive chapter in her catalog somehow. And first impressions were promising with I Hate That I Made You Love Me, which performed well as a single, features super glossy production that yes did feel a little soulless at times but did not keep the track from coming across as dramatic and grandiose. And lyrically the song reads like Ari is really ready to move on to something else, both personally and artistically, as I think the you of this track can be read at least in a few different ways. But after digging deeper into PETAL beyond its singles, I think this record feels just as uninspired and as out of touch as its predecessor, really lacking a sense of direction as well as a lack of topical inspiration. And in addition to that, I really do think Ariana is being done kind of dirty on the production front with this project too, which is strange because predominantly the instrumentation on this album is handled by none other than Ilya as well as Max Martin, 2 perfectly competent pop architects who Ariana has worked with before. But still, the quality of what we're hearing here instrumentally and the mixing kind of makes me wonder if what we are getting on this record is almost like left over from the last times they were working together extensively. Either that or working together again so soon has led to a lack of inspiration because there hasn't been enough time to kind of like forge a new sound or direction. But yeah, take the opening track whose whole sound is completely out of whack for somebody of Ariana's caliber in pop. Between the drainpipe drums and buzzing synth layers that sound like they were sitting a bit too long in the freezer and got frosted over to the point where they've lost all flavor. And the only times on this track where Ariana's soft, pillowy voice is able to compete with these hideous, garish layers is when they're layered up and pitched to a point where they sound almost like a MIDI instrument. There's also the title track, whose backbone is built off of these like kind of splashy tank reverb chords that sound very artificial, very shrill. Meanwhile, these booming kicks and snare rolls are like louder than Ari's vocals again. Not to mention the hook is guided by these awkward at best sort of beat switch ups that don't transition fluidly at all. The structure of this track is held together with duct tape. The one saving grace of it is the booming, distorted finale and the eerily dark vibes the whole track is able to convey. But even when Ilya is cooking with gas, like with the dance grooves and enveloping synth passages on Oh Well, Ariana's vocals on top of all this, unfortunately, have never sounded so disengaged, emotionless, and smoothed over. It's a shame the emotion doesn't come across because Ariana's writing on this track, the fears and anxieties that she conveys around abandonment and another potential romantic situation blowing up in her face are totally understandable. Then there's also the auto-tune component on Freak, which at the start of the track is implemented pretty awkwardly and puts Ari's voice on some weird transitional notes that are just off. It just comes across unflattering for somebody with her vocal range, and the application is so subtle on a vocal performance that is so quiet, is so subtle, is so buried in the mix, it's hard to read it as being done purely for effect. By contrast, the application of auto-tune on the warning signs interlude makes so much more sense, but I digress. I can hear deeper into the track there is kind of this like psychedelic pop odyssey thing going on between the phaser vocal and guitar effects, but simultaneously the sound of this song is far too thin and hollow to pull that kind of vibe off too. And speaking of further production blunders on this record, you also have the entire instrumental of Bad Thing, which kind of feels like a throwback 80s synth pop crossover weekend leftover that just feels so out of place and weird in this track list. But look, for all the issues I have with the instrumentals on this record, it's not like the writing is that much better. For sure, there are some points on this track list where I think Ariana's words can be read a little bit more metaphorically, but for the most part, the writing and subject matters on PETAL feel even more vapid than what we heard on Eternal Sunshine. Either that or the sentiments of these songs are just kind of tough to stomach, like the title track, where some bars do legitimately come across as conceited and insecure. Ariana seems to be aware that there is like a perception of messiness to her life for the typical outside observer, and while it's clear she wants to address that to some degree, the only real response she offers on this track is like, actually things are going great. I have more blessings than I can count. I just wish she had more to say on this front. I feel like the video attached to this track has much more interesting commentary to offer with regards to artists and kind of performing and conforming to industry and public standards of beauty and the like. But whatever relationship there is between Ariana and her fame and her label, it's clearly a fraught one, especially considering we do have lyrics here that seem to make it clear that this could be her last record for a while. It's by for real this time, tired of painting endless pictures of a life that isn't mine. And again, diving into something like this, like digging much, much, much deeper into it, is infinitely more interesting as a concept and an idea than her 30th song about having someone wrapped around her finger or just like, you know, very attracted to her, like on Big Feelings, obviously. And even if you go with like a really wild interpretation of what this song is supposed to be getting at, it doesn't really enhance the listening experience. Not to mention that a more surface level read of tracks like this are kind of like further reinforced by deeper messaging on the record. Like on Like I Do, the kind of number one takeaway from that track is that nobody fucks this other person like Ariana does. So of course he's like absolutely gaga for her. Not to mention that through the writing on Oh Well, it's really clear that Ariana can't really give up on a lot of her unhealthy coping mechanisms. As she makes it clear she's self-aware enough to know that something is wrong, but doesn't really get into the process of doing anything about it other than, I guess, mining these experiences for creativity. Going even further into the record, of course, we have moments where Ariana essentially is kind of getting across the message, ha ha ha, you're never gonna get over me. Which, like, again, I'm sorry. Is this all this album has to offer? You're 33 years old and achieving some of the coolest things you ever have in your entire career. And you also just made your way out of this like really weird relationship that also drummed up a lot of like polarizing discourse. Any takeaways or teachable moments from that? I don't know. It's just hard to feel like this album is anything other than boring, honestly. And that for an artist who clearly has as much going on as Ariana Grande, there's not a lot going on between the many bars and beats of this record. I do think the album has a kind of beautiful closer, but it's kind of cold comfort, as I don't think this record is an improvement on what she did on Eternal Sunshine at all, or a new exciting direction either. And with the recent announcement that she's going to be kind of like stepping back from the public eye for a minute, all I can hope for is that her and her team find some time to just kind of like reconvene and find a way to smooth over and balance just everything that is in orbit around this woman as of late, and maybe just find a better way to help her achieve her goals with regards to performing and theater and acting and music, while also making sure she's not doing too much all at once, so we're not getting records like this that just feel ill-defined and redundant and underwhelming, which is why I'm feeling about a strong 5 to a light 6 on this record. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or a link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Ariana Grande, forever.